Yeah, it go live. Okay. Thinking about the national heroes and icons, wondering why it's important for us to highlight them? Pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Stay tuned and hear what the Rev'd Canon S. Sebastian Campbell got to say about who he is and who we want to become. We'll be right back.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. And what we imagine, we surely can achieve. Join our co-sponsors Domdev Enterprises and Page Investments and our friends at Something to Think About. Ask all of the questions you can and join ourselves with the Rev'd Canon S. Sebastian Campbell as we discuss this day who he is and who we want to become. Welcome, Canon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am tired. Had a rough weekend with church duties, a men's retreat. Had a number of men together this past weekend for a whole weekend. We just slept out.
Oh boy, you had permission for that?
They had permission. I guess their wives are glad to get rid of them anyhow. They had a free weekend because of that.
Yes,
it was a program called Casillo. It is a Spanish word that means a short course in Christianity. And I am the spiritual director responsible for that. And so any man willing to be renewed and reinvigorated, talk to me for another one.
Awesome.
Then
They don't need... No, I would say they don't need that special thing with days advertised on TV, so just talk to you and you're straight.
No, they did spiritual injection. A spiritual injection.
Spiritual deals with everything.
Yeah, they went home rejuvenated on Sunday evening on a high. Right. Pray for those 25 men.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was the celebration of the national heroes in the sense of the awarding of the awards on Monday, the second Monday, which is by law, the second Monday in every October, has been declared National Heroes Day, and the awards are supposed to be administered on that day. All that is written in law.
Okay.
And this year we had some 234 people.
Okay, that's 34 more than I knew.
Far more than ever imaginable. And because of that, it had to be split in two. So, it was a lot of going back and forth. Those who had attended the two ceremonies, 10 and at 5 in the evening. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens next year if that same thing will be repeated with all those persons.
Yeah, well, maybe you're catching up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what it said. They said, in fact, Fred Mitchell used that term, that we are catching up, as though we were not honoring sufficient persons in the past, and we should have been honoring more, and so they're trying to catch up. Yesterday was the 5th of those ceremonies, the 5th time around. Such a ceremony was held. And before, I think last year was 19 total.
Yeah, I know, a small number. Yeah.
Small numbers in years past. I don't think it ever exceeded probably 20 something. All right.
Yeah.
So the rationale is that they're trying to catch up.
Yeah. So Canon, you're named after your dad, Solomon, right? And we always know Solomon in the Bible is supposed to be this wise man.
Well, just to clarify that, I have two names, Solomon, Sebastian. And my dad's name was Sebastian, and my uncle's name was Solomon.
Okay, your uncle was Solomon. Okay, I got it wrong. My mistake.
I from 3rd Street, the Grove.
Yeah. But Solomon is wise man. And then there's the other part that you being a practicing child of God, and a social activist. And, there's this Proverb 31 that I always find very interesting because it has so many components to it. One where I think it talks a little bit about the protecting yourself from certain women, and then the next part talks about speaking up for activism for those who are less fortunate or in need, and then the other part is speaking up, talking about the perfect wife, I guess, and if I put it that way, seeing that you were talking about wives earlier.
The righteous woman.
Virtuous woman, right. So I just find that interesting but, I thought that was something that I always thought about in terms of activism in Christianity. People always say, the church isn't supposed to be merged in these things.
That's where I beg to differ. This church is supposed to be a leader. And unfortunately, persons have put the church in a box whereby we think that church and church leaders, priests and pastors, etc., are only supposed to be keeping church or talking those spiritual things. But I totally disagree with that. I had wished that I was never a parish priest, honestly. I always saw myself as a priest, but as an activist priest doing specialized ministry. And the moment I had a chance to do specialized ministry, I was involved as a chaplain, some of our institutions, and I got involved in the National Heroes endeavor. And
we can talk about that.
I see the priest as a leader out there on political and the civic stage, etc. Now, you remember Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a pastor, was an ordained pastor. And it wasn't for Martin Luther King being able to separate himself many times from the pulpit, where America would have been today with civil rights. All right? Right here in the Bahamas, I wonder how many Bahamians know the name of H.W. Brown. H.W. Brown was pastor. He was the pastor of Bethel Baptist Church. All right? And I don't think we really do justice to him because he was involved foot to foot with Pinland and that group who brought about majority rule and independence, etc. And I'm
but
sure
this is why we want to talk about these things, because there's so many unsung heroes that, and this show is always about talking about things that we don't normally talk about. And so that's why I was pleased when Abou recommended you. And after the first show, I was more than pleased because, you hit on so many spots that we really need too. But your dad didn't really subscribe or did not subscribe to the colonial awards and so forth. And I think that had a role in your activism or igniting the activism in you, and particularly in this movement when you joined up with Fred Mitchell and Loretta Butler. And I think it was somebody else. It was another person.
Freddie Mullins Jr. and Sidney Moss, Sidney Wilson he died now, and Vanda Moss and Terry DeMeritt. Oh, I must not forget Max Turner.
Max, that's the name I was trying to remember.
Turner was the one who inspired me to go forward in this whole thing. But to just go back briefly on my dad. My dad, yes, he was offered one of those colonial awards. And he refused to leave Can Island to come to Nassau to accept such an award. He said it's nonsense. He said it's nonsense. All right. And so that's before I even developed any fire in my stomach for this whole thing. And that gave me something to think about. And
planted the seed.
Not only him, he planted the seed, but not only him, there were others as time went by who inspired me. Let's see. There are a number of persons who didn't. I try to remember there's a doctor, I'll remember his name soon. Paul Adley was an AD Hannah, another one, even though he's Governor General. He refused to accept it. Dr. Burnside, that's the name I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
Dr. Burnside. He's another Cat Islander, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he refused to accept. All right. And so you have a number of other persons. So my dad was a part of this ongoing succession of persons who inspired people like myself and maybe others. All right. And no one could understand, how an A.D. Hanna, Governor General of the Bahamas, refused to accept it. That was a powerful message that he was really sending, that he didn't need it. All right.
Yeah, but we got to keep talking about that. Otherwise, people going to not know later on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
last week, or last 2 weeks ago, I lose track of time now. I think it's about 2 weeks but we were talking about the Bahamian identity. And we got down to talking so far as the crown and being the head of state, and then the Constitution and supreme identity and what is a Bahamian and so forth. And so we want to pick up now on heroes and the icons of national excellence. And so when you are the fifth child of 14, and so to me, that spells out that there was a lot of competition for quality time with your parents about that time. And so you would have had to have either heroes or more role models and or icons of excellence that help you to form your identity. And I think the same thing happens with a nation as what happens with a child. So that's laid a foundation as to what is a hero and what is an icon of excellence. Whether it's a statue or whatever.
Yeah, you're asking difficult questions now. Let me say why I call them difficult. Because if you would check the national honors list and the material concerning national honors, there is some definition that they would have for national heroes, and I think was necessary to write some definition. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but there is something written in order to define, heroes.
But what it means to you,
and legends. All right. But what I prefer to do, and as chairman of the Heroes Committee, what my preference was to have people in their local communities really say who their heroes are, define their heroes. And so this would differ from, say, from Kel Island to Abaco to Andros to Exuma to Elutra, etc. Let them say who their heroes are. Let them identify their heroes. Let them set up monuments, statues, I don't know, walls of fame, etc. And let them honor their people that they see fit in that bill in being a hero or legend, whatever you want to call them. All right. And I think we have succeeded. We are succeeding. We are succeeding. For example, in Green Turtle Key, there is a park. I don't know if you're aware of that. There is a Heroes Park in Green Turtle Key.
No, I haven't been there recently.
Green Turtle Key has set aside persons who they regard as their heroes. Now, you have to go to Green Turtle Key to find out what their definition is. But they have a number of persons right there in their park, in Green Turtle Key. I did been there now quite a while ago, quite a few years ago. It isn't something that is recent.
Well, then you go last in the 80s, so yeah.
Okay. Then you go to the Bluff, Andros, and I gave my nephew. He was the administrator. We once used to call them commissioners. That area, and they set up a wall of fame. All right, and they have the different categories on this wall of fame of persons in different societies that they have set up there at the administrative complex there in, I think it's the Bluff Andros. Then you can go to Cat Island, some midway in Cat Island. I think it's Gators, in Gators, Cat Island. All right. There is a wall of fame set up there. And I was there at the dedication, and I spoke along with the Prime Minister, who was then leader of the opposition. All right. And there are names there. And they have their own committee. That's the wonderful thing.
That's great then.
Own committee. They shouldn't have to depend on a national committee telling them who their local heroes are. So Cat Island defines who their heroes are. They have a beautiful garden, and it is being improved, enhanced incrementally Every time you go to Cat Island, you see something else added, it's improving. And that tells you what they think of their heroes, right?
Right.
And so this was the idea that no statutory body sitting in Nassau would dictate to anybody on anywhere in the Bahamas as to who their heroes are. And I pray God that communities right in Nassau might be able to do the same thing. We have oh boy, we need local government bad in Nassau. Local government.
But that's a different topic altogether, Canon.
Where I was going with it was to have groups within, say, a Baintown, a Grandstown, a Gambia, etc., working together with a Hall of Fame, Wall of Fame, whatever, gardens, whatever.
However they want to do it.
Set aside their heroes. All right, that's what I was trying to go with this. Yes.
No, that's great. So last show you indicated that you said about rescuing our heroes from the graveyards of obscurity.
Yes.
Right. And so to me, you were speaking. So is this the significance as to why we need to highlight our heroes?
Well,
or the wards to highlight, or the walls, or the parks, or whatever
It is necessary, first of all, because generations, even unborn, need to know that they stand on the shoulders of people, and this place is no Topsy. You know who Topsy was, right? Without a father, without a mother, has no ancestry at all. Just drop out the sky. All right. We are builders. Every generation is to build on the blood, sweat, and tears, the achievements of the previous generation. But how can you do that if you do not know who your people are? And for this reason, from the time of our conception, the National Heroes Committee, education was an important plank in our quest. All right. We haven't quite achieved it yet. This is one plank we haven't quite achieved yet. We're still talking to the Minister of Education, for example, to make sure that Afro-Bahamian history is taught to all our children in all of our schools. And I talk from kindergarten, all right, straight through to the University of the Bahamas. Because it's amazing that even in the University of the Bahamas, they're not sure who our people are. All right. Well, I was doing an interview one time with someone from the university, well, it was COB then, and I referred to Majority Rule Day as a reference, and they asked me what that is. All right. It's amazing. We can't take this for granted. You know, the average child probably in school, high school, for example, don't know who Milo Butler is, don't know who Lyndon Finlin is, and God forbid, Ada Hanna and Doris Johnson, and the list goes on. I have a whole list goes on. They simply do not know. All right. They only know where they are today. All right. You can't build a country like that. When I went to school, my history lesson, man, they taught me all about the English history. I knew all about the wives of King Henry VIII. All right.
So Canon, all of these icons and all of these, well, we haven't talked too much about the icons, but the heroes, that's then do they have a significance when you talk about education in helping us in terms of our national development, and then in terms of our society, civil society, of the importance of those heroes, and what role would they play by us identifying those?
They help to define us. Who we are, why we are where we are, and help us to determine where we have to go. And at the same time to know that we can follow in their footsteps and that we too can be somebody. You need to go way back, you know, our history needs to go way back. This education thing, all right? We need to go way back, probably to Pompeii in 1830, and wake ourselves up, all right? All through slavery, those persons who died during the slave era because they stood up to injustices. They show our children today how to stand up to injustices. All right? How Pompey was able to stand up to the injustices meted out to him in Exuma as they tried to transfer him and some other slaves to Cat Island, trying to divide families, put families asunder, and how they stood against it. All right? We need to talk about those persons who were involved directly in emancipation. We need to talk about emancipation in 1834. All right? The heroes. And there should be a lot of research. And therefore, I can't see us celebrating National Heroes Day yesterday, for example, without this educational dimension to it. We ought to have probably an essay competition probably to force our children, to not only let's read Bahamas, let's write Bahamas as well. And thus it will force them to do research. We need to look at heroes and those who laid down their lives. For example, in 1942, in Burma Road, I heard that there were 4 persons who got killed. 4 martyrs. I need to find out their names. The Burma Road riot. All right.
I haven't written down somewhere.
We need to venerate these people and tell their story, the sacrifice that was made, and how we can learn from that sacrifice. This stood up to some foolishness. And the Bahamas today, look as though anything hit goes, anything knock up goes. All right? But not here. The Burma Road riot really teaches us. And those heroes need to be isolated, and we need to celebrate them. They need to be in our classrooms. All right? Then coming forward to 1953, with the formation of the Progressive Liberal Party. That's an important part of our history, because the Progressive Liberal Party was to be the vehicle whereby liberation, the ultimate liberation of our people who are to come. And who knows about William Cartwright, for example? We probably never even heard the name. I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about me and you probably in our era. William Cartwright was the first person in whose mind political parties, the political party system was born. All right. William Cartwright was the one. He was then the representative for Cat Island. He was a Conky Joe fella who from Long Island, who was representing Cat Island in the 1940s, and discovered that he couldn't get anything done for Cat Island.
They didn't like what was happening, how people were being treated and all of that. So they wanted to change the paradigm, change the mindset, change a lot of things. But we bastardize stories for our political expediency sometimes. And
he goes unmentioned, unheralded. I was fortunate to be the one who funeralized him when he died. And the whole battalion of politicians came out to that funeral. But he needs to be lifted up. All right.
So can all of these things help people understand what is a Bahamian? What we identify with sets the standards, as I refer to it, in terms of what we want, or how we what we articulate to. That's the way I look at these people, because everybody, like for example, the young people today I might have said I wanted to be like Michael Jackson, or somebody might say that thing back then, and now you have the people want to be like Beyonce and this and that, or Jordan or somebody, and it's getting less and less and less to be like Bahamians, because in my high school and my yearbook and graduation, I put I wanted to be like Finland, and people was laughing at me, right? But because I felt he did a lot. Not that he did it by himself, because it's a team. We tend to leave out the team members in the whole process, and only talk about the most predominant person. But we have the crown and this granny flying scenario, as I call it, the granny flying, meaning the Bahamian people. When you got granny with the hat on the beach, and store market type imagery or whatever. And then you have the crown, which everybody is sitting up and, highfalutin, for lack of a better. What is it that makes a Bahamian in our culture? is it a mixture of all of those things, or is it one more than the other? Because there's always this argument as to who is a Bahamian and who is not a Bahamian.
A Bahamian is from a melting pot, really. We come from so many different races. First of all, we must acknowledge that. And we are not the original Bahamians. All right? The present Bahamian is a melting pot. But the original Bahamian, I think we need to probably honor them too, as some heroes of our land, the Lucayans. I think we forget them all the time. We need some monument to be set up to them. That whole race of people that was wiped out by the coming of the Europeans in the mines and the plantations of Hispaniola. We must not forget them in our celebration of heroes, because then they were replaced with the Africans. The slavery took off. Then we have a mix of people that have come from all over the world in this melting pot. My ancestry, for example, my father's side came directly to Cat Island from Scotland. All right. And my mother's side came from Guyana. Just trying to show this melting pot.
Right.
All right. Using Cat Island as my example. We have names such as Halkitas, the president minister. Michael Halkitas. That name is not a Cat Island name, but he's a Cat Islander. It shows a melting pot. Yes, right. We have a name Farah. All right.
Right.
I think that's Greek. All right. Melting pot. There's a name I can't call. We had a candidate who ran for Michael in the two elections ago. Yeah, must have been 20 some letters in his name. Remember that candidate?
Yeah, right.
He told me he's from Cat Island as well. All right. And I'm sure as you go from island to island, you'll have this same melting pot. A Bahamian really is from this, the present day Bahamian is from this melting pot. All right. And so we really need to explore our roots, all our roots, from island to island. And certain names are unique to certain islands, and see why that probably would have happened more so than anything. And so
you think, no, I was going to say, do you think that if we were to educate our people on the heroes of the past and those maybe now, that particularly our youth and even some of the persons in my set, etc., would understand that, okay, based on their stories and what they accomplished, mean that, okay, they could accomplish, or we, the new people, could accomplish these things or great things would we put our minds to also, and we don't have to be on this banter of yak, or from a political polarization or some sort of other type of polarization in our society. We will go ahead and just strive to achieve the goals. Do you think that will have a bearing?
Yeah, definitely. It will awaken the minds of especially our younger people. Okay, I'll give you an example. Oh my God, again, Cat Island. Sidney Poitier is from Cat Island. But there's nothing in Cat Island that says anything with Sidney Poitier. And Sidney Poitier never really came to Cat Island to do anything. He just came, visit, had a good time, and left. He would have been an icon. Now, that's what you call an icon, not a hero.
Right.
An icon. Like a Sidney Poitier. All right. In order to show the boys and girls that they can come from nothing to conquering the world.
Right.
All right. So that's an example. We have other icons. We have Joseph Spence is an icon. I think he's from Andros. Okay. That needs to be lifted. But none of these names, all these names are going in that same graveyard. That graveyard of obscurity. All right. And therefore, it is necessary to write books. Yes. We need a campaign called Let's Write Bahamas. We need that. All right. And that is why in these settlements, in these communities, Heroes Park or a Wall of Fame, again, to lift up these persons, that they existed, and tell their story. We need a museum. We need a museum, probably a national museum, just to deal with artifacts from the past or heroes. This is all education. And education needs to be more intentional. We are not intentional with our education. You know, when the Heroes Committee was formed in 1991, it was formed primarily to rescue Milo Butler from obscurity.
Wow.
Here it was, Milo Butler, man, he had a glorious funeral. I wasn't in school then in Barbados. I don't know if you were it. All right, shut the town down, declare a holiday, reverse traffic on Bay Street, man, the whole shebang and more. All right. The idea it was probably 10 years afterwards. Nobody even knew what Milo Butler. All right. You have to find ways to keep our people alive.
Yeah,
all right.
The book. That's about it.
The book.
The little writing book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it. The writing book. Right. And so, not only heroes, but the icons, those persons, whoever can tell a story, to show how they made something out of nothing in our Bahamas. If you read the book of Sidney Poitier, I don't know how many people read that book. Sidney Poitier really talk about making something out of nothing in Cat Island. You know, his days of going to the field. Yeah, his days of scrunching around Cat Island, looking for a living. All right. His days of going to church with his shoes around his neck and then putting it on when he reached the church door because he couldn't wear the shoes out. All right. These stories need to be told and need to be written down, need to be told. And so it has to be intentional. It ain't gonna happen just like that. It will not happen just like that. It needs to be intentional. The Ministry of Education has a glorious opportunity to take us to the next step in our schools. And I don't know, maybe civic organizations too can help with an essay competition, for example. All right, can help. Provide some prizes, provide people who are into literature, who are into history, to be judges, etc. At the same time, you're having fun and educating the people all at the same time.
Yeah, cool. So, Canon, you and a number of persons will be a part of this short video here that we want to play from the antiquities, monuments, etc. that we where's my thing going? Can you hear?
Yeah, that's it. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. I can see it.
Why am I not here? Something going crazy on my phone. 1 second.
I can see it. Can't hear it.
Okay, let me go back.
Yeah, go back.
Yes, but this is a video that came out recently that
It's coming out. It's coming out.
So the thing about botflies is they actually have minuscule hooks that hook into the.
let me start it again. That should have not been like that, but all right, but let's continue to talk about things whilst I find out what happened there.
Okay.
Because something is running in the background that is not a part of my screen. You hear it now?
No. Can't. Don't even see it now. I saw it the first time, but didn't hear it. I don't see it.
Yeah. Okay. One more time. Okay, I got it now. I got it. I get it out. Let's try it. How about now?
No.
Pleased to launch.
It's coming. Came and stopped. You stopped it. It was almost there.
Signing our national.
You got it? Okay.
I can see it.
You can see it?
I can see it.
So, good. Let's play it then. How about now?
Okay.
Hear the
Today's
sound?
video shares how National Heroes Day came to be
Yes.
and
Sound?
highlights heroes and
Yes.
heroines of our distant past. On behalf
Oh man.
All right.
You stop it.
You hear it
Okay.
now?
Yes. Yes.
Greetings from the Antiquities Monuments and Museum Corporation, the Heritage Authority of the Bahamas. We are pleased to launch a new series entitled Bahamas Heritage Holidays. This video series will focus on the key themes and ethos underlining our national days of observance. Today's video shares how National Heroes Day came to be and highlights heroes and heroines of our distant past. On behalf of Team AMMC, it is my pleasure to invite you to journey with us. From the collision of two cultures in 1492 until the early 20th century, the view of Columbus and his quote-unquote discovery was that Columbus was a great man who represented the best of the age of discovery and Renaissance. Indeed, the Bahamas celebrated Columbus with a holiday entitled Discovery Day until 2012. As a wave of decolonization swept the Caribbean and Africa in the 1950s, the views of Columbus and his alleged discovery began to shift. Increasingly, the story of the indigenous people of the Bahamas began to be told, and Columbus began to be seen as a villain, the face of European conquest and colonialism, inaugurated by his landing on San Salvador on October 12, 1492. In the quincentennial year of Columbus's arrival, a movement arose to begin to find a way to celebrate Bahamians and our forebears who played a part in nation formation and independence and development. This movement was a shift from a colonial past to a Bahamian present, and ultimately resulted in the introduction of National Heroes Day in 2013, replacing the celebration of Discovery Day.
I am chairman of the National Heroes Committee that was formed in late 1991. I was recruited really to be chairman of the committee by one Fred Mitchell, who was then leader of the People's Democratic Force, the PDF, and Retta Butler Turner, who was then a card-carrying vocal member of the Free National Movement. I think it was necessary to say that because they needed someone who was apolitical to run with the ball as leader. We made our debut on Bay Street with what was called a Red Mass on the 21st of January 1992. We also had another campaign going against the validity that we had ascribed to Christopher Columbus. Rather than to see him as a hero, really to see him as someone who was a villain. And so when we sat down at the cabinet, we quite easily agreed with the cabinet that the Discovery Day ought to be rechristened and named National Heroes Day.
Well, he is a hero because he represents this Akan, or more specifically, a Hunter revolutionary presence that existed throughout the Caribbean and throughout the Americas. Kwamino would have come from Southwest Ghana and come here. His plan was actually to free all people of African descent on the island of New Providence by killing all of the colonists and settlers on the island, beginning with Governor Fitzwilliam. And if we know how the Akan revolutionary influence functioned, his goal was not just for his own freedom, because he had been living as a runaway for quite some time, according to the words of Governor Fitzwilliam. Okay, but this guy's plan was to actually take over the entirety of the island of New Providence and to quote unquote make it an African kingdom. And in the Bahamas in particular, this is inextricably linked to our predominant national festival known as Junkanoo, which is directly linked to the Hanta people who, like Kwamino, was an Hanta who had a direct link here to the Bahamas.
Dick Devoe is one of the forgotten figures of our history, and here it is. Devoe was an enslaved man who started a revolt. In 1831, Dick Devoe hears that freedom is coming, right? So what does he do? He immediately stops work. And the plantation owner, Joseph Hunter, well, he had a problem with that. And Dick Devoe joined a group of rebels, and Joseph Hunter came to have something to say about it, and he fired a gun at Joseph Hunter. Now, he ended up being executed for that. So here it is, you have Dick Devoe, who's showing that, look, no, we didn't go quietly into that dark night. What we did was we stood up for what was ours, that freedom. So that's why Dick Devoe is important.
Well, Prince William, first of all, was a black loyalist who fought on the British side during the American Revolution. And he actually, because of that, was given official certificate of freedom by British officials during the course of the war. Eventually, he was evacuated at the end of the American Revolution, sometime in the early 1780s, to the Bahamas. But in a 1785 advertisement in the Bahamas Gazette, he was listed as a runaway and escapee. And in fact, the notification suggested that not only was he a runaway, but the handsome reward would be given to the person who would secure him. So his status as a free person was tenuous at best. However, he had to fight for his freedom. And by the early 1790s, in a government document, we find that he has, in fact, secured his freedom. So it's like he had to fight for freedom twice, first in the course of the American Revolution, and secondly, coming to a slaveholding society like the Bahamas. More importantly, though, was he was one of the founders of Bethel Baptist. He is in fact listed as one of the persons who purchased the property around 1791, and that could not have happened unless he was a free person, because only persons who were free could actually purchase property. He then becomes a significant figure and founder of Bethel Baptist, becomes one of their primary preachers, with the death of Amos Williams not related.
Helen Zillette was born in the Bahamas in 1842. She was a public school teacher, and I would consider her a Renaissance woman. Helen Zillette is important because she made history in Florida by becoming the first black woman to become a teacher at a grammar school. And she was also the first black woman to become a teacher at Edwin M. Stanton School in Jacksonville. She was known to be Stephen Zillette's daughter. She was known to be James Weldon Johnson and his brother Rosamond Johnson's mother. And if you know them, they were the ones who composed and wrote the song Lift Every Voice. But it was her influence on her sons by her love of literature and her love of the European tradition and music that imparted that onto her children and gave them that inspiration and that love of English, that love of music to go and open their eyes and to understand what voices are needed in the community. And they did that through music, they did that through writing, and they did that through their activism.
We hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you for journeying with us.
Well, Canon, I think
Yes.
items like that is important because what it does for us is it helps us put in perspective what would have happened back in time beyond the era when our eyes would be open, right? And we'd be able to breathe the air and so forth. And so in speaking with what you're speaking to now in terms of a lot of this education, that is critical of what your committee is doing and what the actual antiquities and monuments are doing. Then helping with this mode, yeah.
I congratulate Chris Curry for that. We need more snippets like that, though. I think we need to encourage them to continue that because questions like things many times be short, and we're in this age now of the media. So
patient.
yeah, that's wonderful, and I pray that more of that kind of thing could be done and just send it out.
Yeah,
and I think that just from National Heroes Day this year. Yeah, because they dealt, and rightly so, they dealt with characters from the early history of the Bahamas. Those names that they used, they talked about, unknown, totally forgotten. But this is one way to get it to surface, and this is one way to keep it in a library or something. Because
cool.
We walk up the modern day. I was talking about William Cartwright, for example, but the modern day Bahamas was shaped by that vehicle that he was able to get going and was able to convince people like, say, Cyril Stevenson and a Henry Taylor. All right. These persons want to, I guess we need to do research on them as well and bring them forward. Right? Because all too often we get very political, and rather than seeing the history, the value behind these things, we just dismiss things as being political.
Right.
The election, the parliament, again, coming from 1953 in 1956, that is a very historic event in the Bahamas. And we probably need to do some snippets and some writing on the fact that it was in 1956, before I was born, that there was a Lyndon Finland, Milo B. Butler, Cyril Stevenson, Sammy Isaacs, Clarence Bain, and Randall Fox, who were first elected to Parliament on the ticket of the Progressive Liberal Party, and who was to really lead the way in being persons to bring about the radical change that the country really needed.
Right.
Then we need to look at heroes from the general strike in 1958. All right. I doubt some persons even know about these events in the Bahamas. And Randall Fox, he has been declared a national hero of the Bahamas. You know, the Bahamas to date has declared Milo Butler, Lyndon Finland, Roland Zillette, and Randall Fox. I think it's just four. Those four persons as national heroes. Randall Fox really deserves his spot. Again, these heroes, they need statues, but they should raise statues to these heroes. All right? And you can't water down heroes by having too many of them. I think Jamaica to this date has only declared 5 persons as national heroes. I think we have just declared those 4. Clifford Darling, the national strike, you know, and the taxi cab union, and their momentous part that they played in bringing about a change in this Bahamas. That whole story needs to be told. And my namesake, Solomon Campbell, who was the president of the hotel union, the largest and the most powerful union in the country, was able to get every hotel worker to stop working for 19 days, just to cripple the industry to get the attention of the government.
Of the government, right? Yeah.
That is miraculous.
Yes, they're big things, and that's why I always tell people today that if we look at things and say one man can make a difference, and I tell them that's not true. So Brian Jacks highlighted a couple of minutes ago, and he had said here that the production should be placed where Bahamians will be able to view. So Brian, this particular show stays on YouTube and Facebook until one of them decide to take it down, so that anybody could have access to watch them as they wish. But I hear you clearly, and there has to be some other formal means of connecting it to the schools and the like, because I'm hearing that's what you are to be saying, and so forth. But you also tell us what you think should be more the things to be highlighted. And then Mrs. Garraway, I saw some long thing there, but in our comments here, she asked the question, Canon, where is the category for the youth? The other year, submissions, names, and organizations believed to be worthy being deemed as national heroes. What else can be done?
That's a very good question. That is called the Lignum Vitae Society.
Lignum Vitae? Okay.
You know, the Lignum Vitae, I don't know, you know what a Lignum Vitae tree is?
Yeah.
A tree of strength. It's stronger than the mahogany. And the Lignum Vitae is common. I don't know what New Providence, but in islands in the Bahamas. All right. And that was my contribution, really, my personal contribution to the honor system, that we include a category just for those 20 and under, the young people. And they call it the Order of the Lignum Vitae. And the reason for that was to show that there are young people. Everybody is not on drugs. Everybody is not in gangs. Not everybody is doing foolishness on the street, violence, etc., etc. And to every year to highlight, isolate a handful, 1 or 2 persons in that youthful category in order to uphold young people themselves as role models, and hopefully having elevated them or exonerate the whole thing through the national award system, that then schools will be able to use them to give speeches, etc., etc., in order to get a positive message across. Unfortunately, this year, no one has been named to the Lignum Vitae Society. So there was no youth, and we classed them as people under 20 that was honored, as far as
But
I
I
know.
didn't even know that was a category. You know, I mean, maybe that's part of the PSAs that needs to happen. So
yeah, absolutely,
people know what to do. Right.
Yeah, and that was my personal contribution as one of the architects of these national honors. That we must elevate the good deeds of young people and use whoever we can from year to year as role models. It's a pity that there seems to be the society that's not taken as, because this is not only the first year. Other years, nothing has happened as well. I don't know what the problem is, but yeah, that's a good question, and I trust that we do something about it.
You know, I think it has to do with culture, you know, and Richard and Alan Jefferson Jr., who was a NBA champion and now a media personality on ESPN. I only highlight him because, as we talk about Bahamian icons and stuff like that, because he said something that I think is critical to us, because somehow our culture seems to get in the way of us succeeding in certain aspects. And he said here that there is culture and then there is championship culture, where you and I are greater than we, right? We have to be the most important thing for the organization to grow. So basically what he was saying was that, and what we seem to suffer from in the Bahamas a lot, is that it comes down to whoever is holding the power of the pen seems to think that they're the king, right? And whatever what they say goes. And so, you know, that culture of that colonial culture, as I call it, versus a democratic culture and a collective culture of society of persons, where it's we, you know, what we the people. And I think in the early days, Finland always talked about the we the people, but somewhere along the line we seem to have gone astray. And I don't know if that's because a lot of these things would have the standards, right? That we didn't talk too much about the national anthems and the pledges and the coat of arms and all these things that have the standards that show us what our identity is. We don't really focus on them too much. And I even noticed that when we play the national anthem now, people don't even stand and watch and face the flag. They be looking all over the different place. So is it a cultural issue that we have to solve first, or is it something else?
Well, simultaneously, you can't wait for one to be in place before you do the other. So I'll say it's a simultaneous thing that we have to do. And probably the problem is, you talk about the we, how well have we been teaching the importance of these symbols, what they stand for, what they mean, where they have originated, for example. I think we have failed, you know, and this ought to be a part of our curriculum within our schools. And I talk about kindergarten. From there, you know, not only be able to sing the national anthem, but what does it mean? You know, how does it identify you as a people? You know,
who wrote it?
Who wrote it? Same with the pledge. What does a pledge mean? Because it can just become empty words, you know. And so go back to the we. I think we'll have to look at the system again, and not only education but family as well. We have to take responsibility for passing on to generation, the younger generation, that which we take for granted. I was there when this whole thing was rolling out, independence. And I was in school, and I was able to take part in the competition. Although I didn't win, but never I took part in the competition. All right? And so I feel very close to the whole thing. But we, again, we, not only government, not only the schools, we, church, civic, and most importantly, family, we must pass on the generations through education, our way of teaching what these things all about. You know?
But I also think that we have the I would say the orange economy, or the culture, the creative economy, because the statues, we have statues that are babies compared to some of the colonial statues. And you mentioned last time, and I've seen the Bob Marley statue in Jamaica, and look at the size of those compared to some of the sizes of what we have. And when I went to Hungary, the statue of, I forget the man's name, was almost 3 stories. But how do we remember our people if we have them hidden someplace in the corner?
You go closer home, you go to Cuba.
Okay.
And Barbados. You know, the size tells a story in itself. Okay? It tells you at what level this person really is within the mindset of the nation, what this person did for the nation. Barbados, they took down, oh boy, they took down one of their colonial statues and put it in a warehouse. And I just love me and Motley. You know what they did after they created a super life-size statue of Errol Barrow.
Okay.
In Bridgetown. Super life-size. So any child seeing that, they can't miss the point that Errol Barrow was bigger than life in Barbados. Errol Barrow would be like the Pinlin of the Bahamas. All right. He was the father of the nation. All right. And look at what we did with Pinlin. We have him hide away in some corner of the airport. Hardly anybody would see. Anybody.
Yeah, and the tourists who do see it don't have nothing to tell them who it is.
Yeah, you know, big deal the way it is, and it's just a small little thing. There should be a super life-size statue of Lyndon Pinlin. All right. That ought to tell a story within itself. And that ought to be downtown. Or in the heart of downtown. All right. Via Bird in Antigua, near home too. There's a super life-size one of Via Bird in St. John's, Antigua. Look what we did with Milo Butler.
Yeah.
It is disgraceful. All right.
I hope when what goes back with Government House it's some Milo is on top of the hill and not somebody else. That was a part of the thing that I wrote that and I looked for it and I can't find it, but I have something on Facebook where I found which references some of the things, some of the movements, and I would have had Columbus going out to sea in the harbor, in the foot of the harbor, right where those rocks are, next to the lighthouse kind of thing, those little rocks out in the thing, so the tourists could see it and marble on it, and put where the Queen Elizabeth is, put her by the Supreme Court, because we still colonial in our laws, but I would put the Black Tuesday, a huge one-story what do you call it thing? Sculpture of the mace being thrown out the window down to the people with the hands up in that square in front of Parliament and stuff like that. You know, and every roundabout in our country should have a statue. The Blake Road area with the Burma Road and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
You know they have that Barbados.
People don't even know where Burma Road is. You know, most people.
I didn't know. I had to just ask and just found out.
Okay.
You know, in Barbados, all these roundabouts they have statues, heroes of Barbados. That's a wonderful idea. You know.
Yeah.
This is how
I'm going to try to doctor some again, but
this is how you build your nation, by educating your people. You must find creative ways in educating. The story needs to be told. You know?
Well, Canon, this has been really enlightening and refreshing to have this conversation with you for these 2 shows. And we're hoping that you found value in them and you pleased with what was able to be produced, and you can share it, have anybody watch the shows as they wish, because the idea is to educate and to help people understand that, it's more to life in the Bahamas than the routine, the doctor, the lawyer, the politician, the this, the that. There are people who made things great. We have the boat builders. We didn't even talk about them. But yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects that makes a Bahamian and what we identify with. And so we just need to continue to grow and grow our economy in the process.
We didn't talk about the women either. Their role that they played.
Yeah, well,
we have heroes about the women too.
Yeah, we've on the show we've had a couple of shows with on the women's suffrage and majority rule and some of those. So those are up there. I didn't want to duplicate stuff like that. But they all tied together in my view.
Yes, of course. Because, it's one story.
My grandmother had us walking around in the big house in Chippenham, and we used to be shouting, "We're black and proud, and we shall overcome," and all that kind of stuff. And things is going on underground that wasn't happening in the front. And then you have if you're white, you're right. If you're black, you stay back. If you're brown, stick around. All that kind of stuff.
Yes,
the Bahamas has come far. We've gone up and down and peaks and valleys. And so we just need to keep moving forward. That's the way I look at it, and get rid of some of this negativity that we have. And look at being positive that we can achieve what we need to achieve. So we'd like to thank you kindly for sacrificing. We know your weekend has been, I don't know, you had some bush medicine or something to keep you going, because
I need to go back
to go through a whole weekend with dealing with the man, and then all of the stuff that I know with Rendo, those bio books that you all did for the awards, it's huge. So are we gonna put them online somewhere so we could have access to those more people than just having to have a physical book?
Great idea. Great idea. Yeah, we plant that seed and make sure it happens. That need to happen.
That.
Yeah.
Get the word out. A lot of information and that, and talking about people.
Yes.
So we'd like to thank you kindly for joining us, and everybody out there in digital world. Appreciate for you taking your time. So Canon, once again, thank you. Madam Producer.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242